cut out every distraction, eliminated almost all of his physical possessions down to 10. And what was he consumed with? A 10x purpose. Something so grandiose that he couldn't possibly have achieved it if he'd spent time doing other things. Because I might make the point, it's easier to go for a 10x goal than it is to go for a 10% increase in your results. And the reason is because once you know what your 10x goal is, you can start to look at all of the things you're doing and easily say, does it help or does it hinder? And suddenly 80, 90% of the things that you're doing are up for question because they won't take you to that next level. A 10x goal is clearer, it's bolder, but it's also the way to better discern between the vital few and the trivial many. His 10x goal was to liberate the Indian people from the British rule. And we know that he did achieve that in his lifetime. Do we believe for a second he would have achieved it if he'd simply tried to do everything that everyone was expecting of him? There's a big difference between listening to the conversation today and saying, yeah, I get it. I need to do a bit more of that. You know, that's being a non-essentialist at the core who happens to do a little bit more on the surface. What I would recommend is a shift of thinking where you decide, I'm going to be an essentialist at my core. It's not one more thing. It's a different way of doing everything. I become a different kind of leader. I become an essentialist. And over time, this will consume your life. A purpose unique to you as you eliminate more and more, and the masterpiece of your life comes forward. When Gandhi died, the US General Secretary of State, US General Secretary, said of him, it was George C. Marshall, said of him, this little man has shown that simplicity can be more powerful than empires. And Einstein said of him, generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this will ever in flesh and blood walk upon this earth. And we don't have to be Gandhi, but doesn't it matter what we spend our time doing? I mean, on our deathbeds, we're going to care. We know quite a lot, in fact, about what people regret on their deathbeds. We know quite a lot because a lot of people have died and a lot of people talked to people before they did. And what we've learned from the process, according to Australian nurse Bronnie Ware, who studied it, is the number one regret of the dying is having lived a life based on other people's external expectations and not the internal clarity within us. I learned this personally in a pretty brutal way. I wasn't going to share this, but it matters. I was working for a boss at the time. She sends me an email. Says, Friday would be a very bad time for your wife to have a baby. She was expecting, otherwise that would have been weirder. And she was due right around that time. And as fate would have it, Friday was the day. Friday was the day. And I was there for my wife, and I was there for the birth of my wife. But I felt all day long, instead of being able to be focused on what's important now, I felt distracted, torn, straddled. How can I do both? And then I thought, got clear. No. With all the conviction I could muster, I said, yes. And I went. And I remember that after that, as I was leaving the meeting, she said to me, the client will respect you for the choice you just made. Now, I don't think they did. The look in their faces did not evince that kind of confidence. But even if they had, surely I'd been conned. Surely I'd made a fool's bargain. And looking back, that was the moment, you see. I quit law school because I knew I needed to be a messenger, to teach and write. I quit that job because I suddenly knew I had a message. How could I do it? I learned that if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. And then I had the second thought, which is that maybe I'm not the only person who's given up power in their life, drip by drip, to somebody else, who's given up their life to an idea that happens to be false. I have to. I just have to do these things. Who've given up their sense of choice to such an extent that they have literally become a victim either of their own success or just other people's expectation of them. And it just makes me furious to think of the waste of human potential that is given up day after day all over the world. Of people thinking, I just got to do this. I have to. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. I can't prioritize. I've got to give that to somebody else. Life is fast and full of opportunity. But the complication is we have been sold a bill of goods. We've been told you simply have to do it all. You have to. And the implication of that is that we'll make just a millimeter progress in a million directions. And maybe it's the stuff that life regrets are made of. Well, I have a position on this. I believe we can make a different choice. That we can become essentialists. That we can break through to the next level. And I call upon the words of William Lloyd Garrison, who said in his first edition of the anti-slavery paper, The Liberator, he says, I will not excuse. I am in earnest. And I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard. And he was. And together, maybe nothing will happen from today. But maybe it will. I call upon you to become essentialists for you, for your families, for your business, for community, and for the world at large. Thank you for having me.